we're going to talk a little bit amongst ourselves, update you on some of the many things that Hometree is doing and that have happened, particularly since they come here to this site 3 years ago. And then we're going to pass over to you to see if there's questions or themes you want to explore or anything at all, feedback or however you feel inspired to ask. So I'd like to just start asking you, Matt. In a recent newsletter, you described this as Hometree 3.0. Operations was reminding me of the Mac systems, operating system. Maybe just tell us a little bit about that, what that means for you, this 3.0. We're somewhere else, we're somewhere new now.
I suppose for us, I'd be just thanks so much for coming and actually kind of booking in a ticket. Most people in the audience have kind of helped out so much that I kind of feel a bit shy about that. But yeah, I suppose I kind of, in a meeting a few weeks ago, when our new head of finance started, Imelda, who's either in here or outside, it really just the feeling was that something, new, we were something new, like a new iteration of ourselves. And I suppose it does kind of invite me to just talk about the journey. We're kind of 10 years old this year. We registered with the charity regulator back in 2014. And at the time, there was the 4 founders, which is Moncon, who's in the back, myself, Mitch, and Fergal Smith. At the time, myself, Fergal, and Mitch, we were running an organic vegetable farm. And, the farm was, multifunctional, had loads of benefits. And, we did at the time want to be able to kind of work with trees in a way, but also find a way to kind of bring outside money into nature restoration. And that was a really kind of humble but good mechanism. And when we kind of started, I remember myself and Dan Crockett and Chris McLean, a few other people were here. We'd started a surfing magazine, and I managed to ask the other people on the surf mag if they would give €1 per copy sold to what we had just started and called Hometree. And for that €1, we managed to buy a sapling from one of the. It wasn't actually a big nursery, it was Sol Mosbacher, who runs Wild Oak Nursery. So we'd buy, I think Backwash at the time gave €500. We bought 500 saplings and planted them at Moy Hill. And it was it was like that from, say, 2014 to the end of 2020. And at that point, we'd filled up Moy Hill with as many saplings as we possibly could. And it was, do we kind of shut Hometree down because it had done its job, or do we just blow a load of life into it? And I remember the last year, in 2019, I'd probably done total of 12 days that year working for Hometree. Mitch had probably done 6, and same as Fergal. I'd done the kind of administering of raising a few quid, and then me, Mitch, and Fergal went and planted them with loads of volunteer days. Sarah was at a couple, Biber, our social media manager, was at a few, and it was just like a real kind of community effort. But our turnover at that point had been around 10, 15, 19,000 for kind of 6 years. So from 2014 to 2020, it was like 6 years of 15 to 20,000. And it was like just something that we did an hour a week or on the side. And it wasn't until 2020 where we decided with Moncon and Iski, who joined the board at that time, to really breathe a lot of life into it. So that is what I was kind of calling Hometree 2.0, when we wrote a really considerable business plan, put it together, and we decided to buy our first site. And it was actually at that point, or just before that, when I was putting the kind of business plan together, called down to Ray's house down in Ballyvascan, and was like, we'd been having conversations for many years about, what Moy Hill was doing, and could we do that? Could we support the farming community to do such things, or, the pros and cons of what we were doing there in a really small kind of condensed way. And me and Ray fleshed out for many, many hours. I take learnings back and weave it into the business plan, and we expanded the board, and me and Ray identified a site. Well, it's actually Ray flicked a link onto me from kind of Daft, and it was a abandoned Sika spruce plantation in Milltown Malbay. And we bought that site, and shortly after we bought this site, and from then it was just really kind of all guns blazing. And just to go straight back to 3.0, so that was 2.0 in 2021. We bought our first site. Myself, Ray, and Maeve, we wrote a successful EIP application. So we put in an application to Europe saying we have this innovative idea about nature restoration, and we were successful. Ray might talk about that in a bit more detail in a minute, but that was the point. In that round, we managed to secure 3.5 pretty modest salaries, and it was myself, Ray, Mitch, and Maeve, and it was from that point we were like, Jesus, we work here. We managed to get this site in April 3 years ago, threw this up somehow, and the first day that Maeve, who was just formally offered a job, we came into this building. I'd kind of promised the gang an office, and there was kind of shale on the floor in there. There was a 12-volt battery with a solar panel on the roof, and we could just about plug in. We used our phones for hotspots, and we delivered this EIP, and it was kind of like that until more or less, a bit better, but sometimes worse, until 3 or 4 weeks ago when we brought some new staff in. We bought a few sites in the meantime, but that was really Hometree 3.0, and I seen a really interesting, or I listened to a podcast really interesting the other day, and it said you should never join a business or an organization until the adults are there, and it really feels like the adults are here now. And I suppose on that journey we've had the first kind of part of it was we had some skills with Ray and Maeve. I knew that I'd kind of fight tooth and nail for it, but Maeve and Ray were really skillful at what they did, and we brought in a few staff that were just really good people, and we did a lot of training with people up until then, but then in the last few months we've hired a lot of skills. Now they're good people too, but they are absolute weapons as well, so it really just feels like kind of Hometree 3.0. This is a summer school meeting. You can see the croissants in the middle. Yeah, these are the adults. But yeah, it's been a good decade, really.
Sarah, I'm just thinking, I know operations manager, you're probably not in charge of everything going on, but one of the big projects that has had a lot of attention is the Wild Atlantic Rainforest project. And maybe you just tell us, even if it's not your thing, 'cause I know Jess has come on board now, just tell us a little bit about where that's at and how that's been going and what that really means on the ground.
Sure. So the Wild Atlantic Rainforest project started, it was cooked up, I don't know where, but by these two and a few more, I'd say. I think I joined the team about 2 weeks after big national press announcement that this was going to happen. Landed into, okay, we've told everyone this is going to happen, how do we make it so? And I suppose the guys were pretty brave in how they did it, in that we had literally no idea how it was going to happen yet, but decided, I suppose, for ambition and accountability, and just it needs to happen one way or the other. The large announcements were made. So we spent the last year or so working out fundraising. We secured a site in Galway. Our largest site is in the Glenlosh Valley in Connemara. It's between Mam and Lenan, and we have 280 acres there in currently very degraded habitat. It's within the SAC, Special Area of Conservation, but it's not in good shape. It's been used for extensive sheep farming for generations. So we're aiming to work using that site as a hub and a couple of other sites around the country to create places where we can bring people together and restore nature in that space, but also show other people how it's done, learn together, and allow that to spread out. So the Rainforest Project is aiming to restore 4,000 acres in total, and 2,000 of Hometree owned land, the plan, and 2,000 acres of land with other people. So we're really building in kind of cooperation and working with others in from the outset. And where we're at now, we have about 3 weeks ago just gotten a project manager. That role has been funded through the Life's Too Good Foundation. They've been supporting us for 2 years now. They came on board and supported our seed project first last year, and got our seed bank and seed collection program up and running. And then they've expanded out their support for us this year. So we're really grateful for that. And we now have someone, I suppose up until now, the Rainforest Project has been both everything we're doing and maybe not quite exactly what we're doing, because between the team we're all, we're trying to grow out this project, but also the whole organisation. So we haven't had anyone's head just fully focused on what this ambition is and how we're going to get there. But that has started now. About 3 weeks ago, we have someone who's going to really focus, and we really are feeling great about the potential. The groundwork is there, the ambition is there, we've started moving, but we have someone really driving it now.
Great. Ray, I think some people will know something of the Sligo project, rumours and words, and nobody really knows that supermarket has got involved and bought some land and blah, blah, blah. Can you tell us a bit about that? Is it part of the rainforest project? Or
yeah, absolutely. I think Sarah was in the office about 2 months. And she said something like, fair play, like, lads, for getting this big site in Galway. Like, it's some achievement. I was like, we don't have the money for it. Yeah, I think the expression is like trying to build a plane, trying to learn to fly a plane, or build a plane whilst flying it, or something like that. It's the Sligo site is. I think it's something really progressive that we've done. We were approached. We actually get approached all the time by businesses who say, like, we know this biodiversity and carbon space and all this is opening up, and we're thinking about buying land, and maybe he could look after it for us or something. That's something, for ethical reasons, we're not ever going to do. We don't want to be land managers. The land is either ours and we're a charity, a regulated charity, or we want it in community ownership. So we don't want to manage land for businesses. So we said that to this organisation, and they were open-minded to the idea that they would buy us the site, but so we'd own it. So we are now the owners. It's an amazing 90-acre site on the Eastkey River in County Sligo. It's about 70% peatland, with the beautiful ancient hazel woodlands down by the river. It's a stunning site, and the potential is massive. So it was the Canopy, their shopping centre in Sligo, and like, I really have to take my hat off to their commitment to doing the right thing. It was like, there's a lot of greenwashing in this area and a lot of tokenism. I think they really put their money where their mouth is. They bought it for us. It's absolutely ours. We have full agency over the site, and what they get to do is benefit from the positive things we do. They get to talk about this relationship they have with Hometree. So I think it's kind of, I don't know of a precedent in an Irish context, of a company doing something like that in partnership with a charity. So where that site is at the moment, that's actually the Glenlash site that Sarah was just talking about, and that is just really, we've just done the first ecological assessment, so we now know what's happening on the Galway site. We've just got a new ecologist who's going to be, one of her first jobs, Jess Beresford, is going to be producing something like that for the Sligo site. What habitats are there, what condition are they in, and then we'll take that to our advisory board to say, okay, what's the best approach to this site. So pretty exciting.
And do you think it's pretty replicable, Ray, like another supermarket could take up the idea? And
I think we've
Neutral exercise in the end, wasn't
for
it?
them, yeah, maybe you should speak to that, Matt, like their perception of the cost neutrality of it.
Yes, I think originally they actually identified the site and brought it to us, and the site was originally on the market for 100,000, and they said they were happy to kind of put that much towards it. And anyway, it went up to 150, so we did put some of our own money in, but after we've gone through the process, we got a report back from their director a few weeks ago, and it said for the tax relief that they got for the donation, which is about 12.5%, and the value of the marketing that they got from the partnership, it was actually a cost benefit exercise. So they see this on their kind of sheet as really a great investment. And I suppose since that happened about this time last year, I've taken that to other phone calls instantly. Like, this is an example of a really good project. This is an example of the ambition of SMEs. If you're a big corporate and you're phoning up looking to put 10-15 grand into nature, like, you can do that. We're not going to say no, but I'd be very careful about how much you try and brag about it, because it probably isn't going to have the impact that your head of marketing thinks it's going to. So it's been a great process, and we've actually got their report. We're in the middle of putting it into a kind of a document, so we can actually share that instantly with other potential funders.
Sarah, we might just talk a little bit about what's going on here at the site over the last 3 years. I do a lot of the volunteer days on the Saturdays. I support Mitch or Finian, whoever is here, and many of the volunteers are here this weekend, and they've all arrived and they've gone, oh my goodness, because the rapid change in the site has been in the last few weeks, and we've, over the 3 years, it's gone from a lot of ruined buildings to what you're witnessing and seeing today, so it's amazing. But maybe just talk a little bit about Mitch and Jeremy and what they're up to here.
Sure, yeah. Maybe before Jeremy sticks his
Yeah,
head in. Big smart way to hear me talking all about it. Yeah, maybe before even I get onto that, to focus in on some of the buildings works here. We've finished renovating the cottage. We're now using it as office space and usable space. We still have this, although actually when the summer school isn't on, we have a couple of desks in here now as well because we have so many staff. We're not quite fitting in the small office anymore. That work has been done by some local contractors, Western Builders, but also largely by Sasha, one of our staff members, who's just been incredible. He's gotten so much work done, so we really wouldn't be in such a beautiful space without him. And with Matt really driving forward to make sure that this looks good for you guys. In terms of the nursery, we're in a big period of growth with the nursery as well. So as you can see, we've got 2 tunnels and some outdoor beds both here and far side of the site, and Mitch is up the walls this season preparing to expand that out by about 4-fold in general. We have the funding for some polytunnels. We're working through some kind of planning permission where we can put those ones up because we've kind of exceeded the limit for polytunnels without permission. But so when you're here next year, we'll have the functioning main nursery will be down at the other side of the site. There's going to be 4 tunnels there, and 3 of them will be for propagation, and then one of them will be maybe more of a research tunnel that Jeremy is going to use. Jeremy has spent the winter out collecting rare trees. He's been collecting aspen. Actually, I picked some up from Sean in Donegal when I was up there on my trip during the winter time, so thanks Sean for some of those. He's been collecting rare white beams. Jeremy's just kept his head down over the winter and did some incredible work without anyone really noticing. And he needs some space that he can hold all those precious trees and keep kind of growing out. Some of the work that he did this winter has tripled the number of individuals of Scannell's whitebeam that are in the country. That's how rare it is, what he did in a couple of weeks. So there's some really incredible work happening there. And yeah, Mitch is continuing to grow. We got a Department of Agriculture funded an innovation grant. So we got about €150,000 worth of capital investment this year. And we just got word about 2 weeks ago, we've gotten 70,000 more. And what Mitch is doing is he's really experimenting. You know, we're the only organic tree nursery in the country. And Mitch is trying to use, a part of what we're trying to do is be, good to the soil that we're using to grow the trees. We want to nurture nature here on this site as well. We don't want to degrade nature here. So Mitch is really breaking new ground, figuratively and literally, with very light sort of market gardening machinery, and he's trying to adapt it to make it work for trees. So there's some really cool things going on here.
Great. Ever since I've known Hometree, there was always a quite a holistic view, particularly bringing in voices from culture, writers at Hull Kingsnorth, Mark Boyle, Moncon. They were all involved from very early on, and people like Mary Reynolds, whole range of voices always brought in. And now this has brought us to Dinshanicus. Because I think a lot of the voices before, maybe artists, there was music here, there was singers, but there wasn't a huge amount of funding for the arts, and that's suddenly changed. Do you just speak to Dinshanicus a bit?
You could probably speak to it as well as I could. I saw a funding opportunity with Creative Ireland, who, by the way, have supported a lot of this weekend, and I'd really like to acknowledge that. Tanya Benatti's here, who's been a huge supporter of some of the work we've done, but I saw it was through Creative Climate funding an opportunity to, I suppose, put our money where our mouth is in terms of our commitment to hearing the voices of the communities we work in. We have an aspiration or a dream for the west of Ireland. I think it's a fair one. It's not one that has forests everywhere and re-wetted bogs everywhere, but it's got a lot more native forest and a lot more re-wetted bogs and, close to nature farming. That's our dream, but we're conscious that that mightn't be the dream of our neighbours, say in Glenlash or up in Sligo. And me and you wrote the Dinshanicus project together, and the idea was to send a group of artists out to the geographical regions of interest to us. So that'll be the likes of Donegal, Connemara, Mayo, South Kerry, to listen to the communities. And that communities, I suppose a lot of it's farmers, but not exclusively farmers. Farmers because they own most of the land, in these areas. But there's other people in these western and upland communities. So we, thanks to, I think, a really good effort between myself and yourself, we secured, I think the limit you could ask for was 250,000 and we got 249.99 or something like that. So fair play to us. And delighted that Grace is the resident writer on the programme, and yeah, couldn't be happier that you're involved, Grace. We also did a recruitment for 6 additional artists. We had 110 applications, and it was really difficult. The first step actually was getting Lucy Taylor on board as a project manager. I'm a great man for ideas and I'm not so good at delivering them. So me and Lucy worked together and making sure this project happens. But we had 110 applicants, and out of that we got 6 amazing artists. I'm so happy that we're doing that, and they're all here today. They'll be doing workshops over the weekend, and we had our first get together down in Kerry a couple of weeks ago, where all the artists came, and we kind of did a mini summer school in Kerry. We heard from farmers, we heard from farmers, we learned about the issues, and now those artists are going out to the 4 corners to listen and to creatively respond. And it's one of the proudest things I am of in Hometree at the moment. I just love it, and I'll finish on this. For me, I always imagined it as a project that would relate to how the artists related to their communities and what the creative feedback would be from that. But what I'm seeing now is that there's this exchange going on between the artists. There's a community within themselves that's the potential is through the roof, and I can't wait to see what comes of that. I really see the Enchanticus not as being a funded project that's got an end date, but just a new. It's like the nursery. It's something Hometree does now and always will do.
We'll come very soon to some questions, so if anybody has questions. Ray, that lovely statement there, the potential is through the roof. And I think that that's true of everything that Hometree does. But I also know that there's an awful lot of challenges that you guys face, particularly around legislation. I know with the EIP, that farmers signed up for doing bigger projects or planting many more trees, and then there were blocks along the way. Do you want to talk about some of that? It's not all as amazing as it sounds.
Yeah, I'll say on the EAP briefly. I might let Matt speak to the other challenges. With the EAP, myself and Matt and Maeve wrote it, and the idea was Hometree is as a landowner, we've an ambition of 4,000 acres of restoration at the moment. It's nothing. On the bigger picture, there's 20 million acres in Ireland. So for us to actually achieve our ambition, and we are ambitious, we need to partner with other landowners, give them the tools to support financial incentives, information, whatever it is. And so we ran the EAP to trial that, and that was basically giving farmers the tools, the information to make good decisions. And out of that, 12 farmers in a catchment near Milltown Malbay made the decision, I want to get into native forestry, and they submitted license applications for 100 acres of native forestry. Great, job done, proof of concept, one of the best proof of concept we've ever had. All of them basically got knocked back, unfortunately, by the Forest Service, who generally the Forest Service have been good to us. But it's just bureaucracy. They all got told no, plant Sitka spruce, and we've been fighting them tooth and nail ever since. And we've got most of them back into being able to plant native woodland. But such a simple thing, like getting people to the place that they're willing to do the right thing, and them to be hit with that, it was dispirited.
Do you want to say anything else to that, to challenges? I imagine this year looks great. Maybe we don't have guarantees for next year.
I think, when we're in this building, before Hometree came here, there was probably never so many people on this piece of land. So, we're constantly kind of pioneering a space. It's actually one of our new organizational values. But, we are carving a way out. And, we had a conference a few days ago, and the idea of the conference was to be disruptive. But, for us, entering anywhere, it is unsettling. It's disruptive. Even every week we have the biggest meeting of our life. That's a kind of shaky place to exist. And every week we're having to learn new skills as senior team, and every week we're having to kind of remember more and more names and faces and places to find resources, finance, but I think we all believe it's possible, and we're a really good team. Like we play so well together. That this week just proven it. I don't think any of us are tired. Maybe Jeremy's had a few too many pints, but other than that, we're like we're learning how to kind of really play a great game together, and I believe that the kind of landscape is going to change drastically in the next decade. I think it's going to change no matter what. And I believe that it does need, NGOs, kind of maybe slightly disruptive ones, young ones, kind of revolutionaries to kind of keep like the fire lit, keep burning things, keep changing things. Because if we don't, then the status quo doesn't look great for the people or for the place, I don't believe. So
important to say on that, we see ourselves as a limited success to date, but in terms of our impact, it's minuscule. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely minuscule. It's, myself and Matt were describing it as not even the first step on a 1,000-mile journey. It really isn't in terms of the change that needs to happen. I think we have a few interesting ideas, and we've proven that they can actually deliver at this scale. I don't know if we know how to take it to the scale that's required, or even if that's a plausible thing. There should be some expectation, but we played around with ideas of what our ambition should be, and I think we settled on a meeting that is 1% of Ireland, an interesting ambition. I think it worked out as 40,000 hectares. Yeah. Can we make a positive change to 40,000 hectares? I think we thought, okay, I think we can do that in 10 years.
That sounds great. Let's open up the conversation, and it is really a conversation. It doesn't have to be questions. People have statements or reflections or anything at all. They're really welcome. So,
why would they not let you plant native woodland? Why do they want you to plant the spruce?
How long have you got?
Silly question.
Yeah, so it's there are good reasons to not plant native woodlands sometimes. Sometimes you could have a species-rich grassland. There's already important habitats there. If you plant trees, you displace or damage them. So there are good reasons even not to plant native woodlands, but their ones weren't good. They were too close to the coast, so the trees wouldn't grow straight or they'd grow stunted. Two, the ground was too wet. I mean, like there's trees, native Irish trees that thrive in wet ground, as you know, alder, willow. So some more elevation. So I think it's cultural. There's some of the rules in the forestry guidebook. They talk about being able to grow yield class 14 timber. So then they run that rule against your application. Can this site grow? Yield class 14 is like moderately productive timber.
Yes, it's commercial.
And none of our farmers were looking to produce commercial woodlands. They were thinking about nature. They were thinking about legacy. They were thinking about an awkward field that they couldn't be arsed farming anymore. One said to me, I'm sick of topping rushes in that field, Exactly. So we'd accept the reasons if they were ecological every day of the week, planting a peat bog. We don't want to do that, but they weren't that. They were more productive. Say that again?
How would you get kind of response with quilcher?
We don't have to deal with quilcher, but that is the Forest Service. So basically our forester submits an application on behalf of the farmer to the Forest Service. The Forest Service look at it. At the time there was an inspector who was kind of particularly finicky. We're dealing with a new inspector now, which is good. But we have brought them on a journey as well, and we've had the Forest Service, the director in this room, and explained, and that's part of the process, as Matt said, NGOs and charities have a role here, communicating in a trustworthy way between parties, because when a forester goes to the government and says, I should be allowed to plant that, the government will say, well, that's because you make money out of it. Yeah. We don't make money.
It's also worth saying that you are allowed to go and plant a hectare of land without planning permission. You are allowed to do that, but what they were asking for is a state scheme. They were asking for money from the state, money from the taxpayer. So what the state has built the whole forestry system around is getting that money back from this production of timber. So it's not completely mad that they said no, but it is a real tragedy because they're not explicit in that all the time.
You're trying to kind of insert an ecological peg into it,
Exactly.
and it just doesn't work. It's the same across the board with everybody. Like the native woodland scheme hasn't worked in so many cases because of that. So that we have the Forest Service is really about afforestation. You guys are talking about
Woodland creation.
native woodland restoration. And it's completely different long-term aims. And so you're being forced to seek permission to do something that you're not going to do anyway because you're not doing deforestation. It's nuts, and it should be completely deconstructed. Like the one little derogation they did in the last year or two was they're now allowed. You used to have literally planning permission to plant more than 200 trees, native trees in the country. That's kind of the bottom line, and they changed that now to a hectare. So. But you still have to fit into their prescriptions of afforestation, planting kind of schemes, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of movement yet to be made to kind of get to a place where you can work on a landscape scale and get the state to support you.
I think at the highest level, at the moment anyway, politically and even in terms of the director of the Forest Service, I think they want to do the right thing. I actually think they're like, I don't really have the right vehicle to get there. And they deal with bureaucracy downwards the same way as we deal with it upwards. They have a system that doesn't deliver for them.
Thanks a lot. I'm just going to ask any more questions around Hometree, just to before we dive off.
So the perspectives, new perspective on land buying, if you're afraid maybe how farmers, in the market, how farmers will they support you as a conservation organization buying farmland.
I think we probably took a strategy decision a year ago that when I say 40,000 hectares, we don't want to buy 40,000 hectares ever. I think if we had a couple of hundred hectare sites in strategic locations like Galway Donegal, Kerry, I think that's enough for us. We want having places like this allows us to do stuff like this, be a stakeholder, run events, do trainings. So we're never going to be out there competing in a big way for land. I don't know if that answers your question. What we ultimately want to do is the EIP style approach in other areas.
I suppose our mission is to, create permanent habitats, restore permanent habitats. So as, buying land and holding that in the ownership of the charity is a really good mechanism for doing that, but it's not the only mechanism. So
it's also really expensive. If we were to buy an acre and plant it up with woodland, it's going to cost us 10,000 euros. But if we can support a farmer doing that, it could cost one. And that's what we've seen in the EIP. We got 100 acres of native woodland, and it cost the state 100,000. If we were to do that,
more like 50 in terms of
But that proof of concept cost 100, and if we were to do it again, it would be less. So it is,
I was going to ask a question about the nursery, because that's expanding very rapidly. Is that primarily to support your own tree planting needs, or do you see that going beyond that to be, a potential market for other sourcing native provenance trees is really difficult, especially the minor species.
I think this seat was reserved for Mitch, and he's not here because he's looking after the nursery right now, and that's and he's been here. He poured the concrete on this floor. He every single step of the way he's been instrumental in I think the success that we've had. The nursery last year we produced about 40,000 of our own saplings from our own seeds that we'd collected or seeds that we'd bought. This year should be like 80, and in 27, looking at 1 million saplings. Yeah, that's a significant contribution to the, forestry in Ireland. We won't be using all of them ourselves, but there is it is difficult to source really good quality native provenance trees, and the phone doesn't stop ringing. When we put up a post about the white beam that Jeremy had found, the phone didn't stop ringing, and people were like, I'll drive down right now, I'll give you 100 quid, move out the way. And we just had to say, I wanted to say yes, because we could keep the lights on, but no, we had to say no. And but yeah, it's really, really one of the best things that we're doing here. And it costs a lot of money. It's, you know, if you look at the nursery numbers, it's a disaster, you know, and it really is. Like, it's not making money. We sold 40,000 saplings this year. We produced 40,000. We kept most of them ourselves. We sold a few. It generated about 12 grand. There's 3 staff, 2 tunnels, loads of machinery, heaps of like organic matter.
That's a big investment. So
Yeah.
you're really investing in that. Yeah.
I want to jump in just in terms because of the volunteer days, and that's the one thing
gonna ask
I really
you.
know.
Yeah.
I really want to defend the nursery. I mean, and sometimes in life we just have to step out of the money thing. I mean, money is what's limiting so much of these conversations. And the amount of meaning we are bringing to people's lives in a time of crisis and panic and emergency, you couldn't pay for it.
We do pay for it because we believe in it.
Yeah, but
Like, no, I push back on the nursery all the time because it's really expensive. But we believe in it so much that we go out there and do tough consultancy jobs to keep the lights on and keep it growing. We really believe in that thing.
which brings me to you're also just recently recruiting next week for a community
I was just
person.
going to talk about that. Thanks,
Yeah,
Grace. Yeah, so we successfully got some funding from Rethink Ireland through the Impact for Munster Fund. And with that, I suppose we were recognising that in order to, you know, connecting with people, bringing people in as part of this journey is really a core part of what we want to do. But as a kind of, I suppose, a bit scrappy organisation that's still trying to keep the lights on, really, if we look at it closely, to interact with us, you either have to pay some money to come to something like this, or you need to work hard at a volunteer day. So that we either need money or work from you to come here. Really, you know, we try and keep the doors open, but that's, I suppose, sort of the reality. So as a result, we have a pretty homogenous group of people that we're interacting with. You know, you look around this event, there's not too many people who, we're just not really reaching everyone we could be. So we decided to try and get some support for that, to bring a bit more spaciousness, that we can bring people here to learn about what we're doing, to engage with the work, to get some of the benefits without having to work really hard or pay a bit of money. So we're about to hire, we're doing the interviews next week. We've gotten amazing applicants for it. It's been really incredible. We regularly say here we were lucky we got in when we did, because I don't know, would we be getting to the top of the piles that are coming in now for applications. But we're going to work with community groups in this area, maybe up to anyone in Munster, people that we wouldn't otherwise be coming onto this site. And as part of that work as well, we're getting some consultancy services to look at measuring our impact and to look at building accessibility and inclusivity into. We're developing out the physical side right now, as you can see. So we're going to be getting some expert advice on that, and also on sort of our policies and procedures, how we run as an organisation, to make sure that kind of from this early day we're building that sort of accessibility and inclusivity in. So yeah, that's a pretty exciting project that's kicking off the next couple of weeks. If you know of any community groups who might want to get involved, or underrepresented groups, send them our way. Thanks.
Any more questions? Hey.
Yeah, but just about the nursery. So you're providing a public good. I mean, it's a national, you know, you are effectively building a national seed bank. And I just wondered, like, there's Kew Gardens in London has a national seed bank for the UK. Is there an equivalent in the botanical gardens in Dublin? And if there isn't, should they be paying you to do what you're doing?
There is one in the botanical gardens in Dublin, and I suppose even seed bank is a little bit the wrong term for what we're doing here. Like, we're not really working the space that can be stored long term. It's more of a living seed bank that we have here. Everything is getting in the ground within 1 to 2 years once it's viable. And we are getting plenty of support from the state with that project through that technology grant I was speaking about. So on a small kind of lab-based scale, yes, that is happening in the botanical gardens. But what we're doing here is kind of bigger scale, sort of a living bank, I guess is how we see it. Yeah. A kind of approach that we're building out now. If you talk to Jeremy, you'll probably get 16 seconds in before you start hearing him talk about seed stands. So rather than him being on the road or working with other people all over the country harvesting wild seeds, what we're working to do is build plant areas here on our sites and in neighbouring areas where the seeds will grow, and we'll have our own supply. And that kind of ensures better kind of continuity of supply, and it's more efficient. So that would be part of this sort of living seed bank, you could say.
Thanks. Anybody else? Another?
Well, it's really, because actually, I think you answered in part with the community manager role, because I think you underestimate a little bit sometimes the ripple effect of the impact and everything you're inspiring other people to do. And I think, even from this summer school and from even the conference, I just saw the number of people who attended and how powerful they are in their own individual roles, that could substantially change the way we manage our landscape in Ireland. And maybe that's what the consultancies will do, but I think that has to be taken into account in addition to what you're doing on the ground yourselves.
Like Ray said, we're trying to build the plane as we're up in the sky or something like that, and that that has really been happening. And this Hometree 3.0, it's like we don't need to do that anymore. We might need to visit, double down and visit it a few times, but this year was going to be the first year that Mitch only worked on the nursery. In the past, he'd been pouring concrete, taking deliveries, coming off tree planting, and that was the year, like January 24, Mitch just in the nursery. And then we got funding from the Department of Agriculture to build the infrastructure for the nursery, a borehole, a cold store, a few more tunnels. So now he's not even in the nursery anymore. He's just organising that stuff. So it's actually going to be pushed back till next year. But what we are building is just a really good understanding of the space. We're, positioning ourselves better and better each time. And sometimes I kind of joke that we haven't actually done a good job. We've just filled a vacuum. And I also, like Ray said, we're like half a step on a 1,000-step journey. Like Ireland's still in a pretty bleak situation. Just because it's sunny and we're having a nice day here doesn't mean it's all good.
I would say, Fred, though, in terms of an example, one of the, I really believe there's a future for nature restoration in an economic sense and I know you're pretty tuned into that as well in the west of Ireland. That a fella at a conference I was at a while back said, we can't keep managing the land according to yesterday's logic, and yesterday's logic in the west of Ireland is that you just about get a few sheep to graze the hills. It's not. The real treasure in those hills is carbon and clean water and biodiversity, and I think I really believe there's a future for a brilliant future for the west of Ireland in that. What I think we're doing here in a very small way is showing people like our digger driver or the builders who work on site or the cafes downtown who now have 17 salaries here. It's like, geez, actually, it does seem to be a bit of action in this space. I think that's a good thing. And we've had to, it's not quite still month to month anymore, but we're still fighting, every just to keep this thing up in the air.
The question should be, what are the worst jobs you've done to keep the lights on?
Can we have a last couple of questions before we finish up? Anybody got?
Yeah, just a question about the vision, right? And I think I heard you say that we're aiming, or maybe it was Ray actually, 40,000 hectares by 2030.
I don't know if we put it. I don't know. Whoa, Joe. Delete that off the video.
Okay, whatever the number is, there's a big number, right? But Hometree don't want to own that. But yes, you can own it, but you don't manage that. So that's community. Is that right?
I think, what we said with the Rainforest project, it was 2,000 of our land that we would buy, and we'd work with farmers on 2,000 or landowners on 2,000 of theirs. We need to wrap that up first. We can't, that is our strategy. That is our vision. At the moment, we're working on a new one, which is quite close. We've got a new board, Joe being one of them, and we're going to really stress test it before we go out to the world next time, me and Ray, and just launch into we're going to do something. But what we do know is that we're learning a hell of a lot. We've done a great pilot project with the EIP, and we're going to do the Rainforest project is on track. And from there, we can reassess and see what's available. But I say this at nearly every board meeting, is I'm really not here for a job, even though I love it and I'm grateful for it. It's to really make a difference. And that is echoed throughout the whole of the organization. All of the staff, Finn says it every single day, I'm here to knock it out the park.
Ultimately, Joe, we need to come up with a mechanism where we can walk onto, a piece of farmland and offer them something that delivers what we need. It has to be, permanence is a big word, but it has to be really long-term change that they can buy into in a way that they're like, cool, I still feel close to this. I feel like my values and my way of life are protected in this, and we feel the same. And there's a financial transaction there, and we like that's really like the two Jesses, our new ecologist and our new project manager, working with people on the board. That's the big job at hand, and I think we took a lot from the conference the other day. This is being done. It's still like baby steps even in other jurisdictions, but I'd like to think that we're as close as anyone in an Irish context to delivering on that.
Super. Right. Thank you.
Last question from anybody?
It's really a comment. It seems to me you're being incredibly humble because like, a target of 2,000 hectares or acres is unbelievably ambitious. And to deliver something like that is kind of groundbreaking and enormously useful in the woodland conservation field.
But there's like countable for-profit companies out there that are working way faster than us. The big forestry companies, the big people that are buying up land to put into forestry, like they're working at a pace far bigger than ours, under the radar, buying up big chunks of island. So if we can't say we're going to compete and the world can't hear that we can do it too, we may as well just give it all away.
Because honestly, Sean, that's what we're against, is that like the state forestry company now is actually actively seeking land, like private farmland, to buy on behalf of investors, on behalf of the likes of Gresham House. And I'm not making a comment on that, but that's a reality. There's big money chasing the same farms, and we need to find a deal that's good enough to say, don't go with them, don't sell your land to them, work with us, you can stay there, your family can stay there, there'll be better environmental outcomes, better. That's the deal we got to put in front of them, and it's a massive, massive task, you know.
So maybe just last round, Sarah, what would make your life easier here?
Cash. Words of Sasha. Cash. What would make? Yeah, I guess we're still at the point where we're
So good.
keeping. You know, we're still moving between working on the vision, working on the strategy, and then, we better make sure there's enough money coming in to pay the salaries next month, the month after. So we're not out of that vulnerable place yet. So that would definitely help. And other than that, I don't know what came up to me when you mentioned what are the challenges. Like, I feel like we're working through the challenges that any young organization faces. But really, the feeling that I have is that like we are getting such incredible support. Like at every place we look, there's someone there ready to help us and ready to, we're really just moving through an upsurge in people who are trying to make this happen. So a bit of cash, and other than that, let's keep all working together to get it happening.
I think genuinely for right now, we've actually given ourselves what we need. Around Christmas, where it was hard conversations and challenges, and we said we have to have an ecologist, we have to be scientifically robust, we have to be fiscally robust, we have to have better project management. We can't do it all ourselves. And we've got Imelda, the Jesses, Lucy, we've put like excellent people in 4 or 5 positions of responsibility and power, and I really think we can kick on from that. Each one of them is a massive investment in our future.
Echo what Ray said. In the start of the year, January, February, we had taken on we said we were going to do a lot of things, and we went on a field trip to Scotland, the 3 of us, just before we were working on a lot of the kind of 2030 strategy and vision. And, we were all definitely a bit shaky, and we said we're not going to make any more decisions about what we're going to do until these 5 people have started. And what that's allowed is that the 17 of us, those 5 have taken a lot of what we currently do, and the rest of the team that are already here, they're like, at last I'm getting the support from people that have worked in this space for a really long time. Because the people that are already here, they're equally as epic. I think, what you were saying is what do you need, or what would help you?
And what would help?
Yeah, I do find, we're a charity for a reason. Like when we signed up to that in 2014, it's like, how can you serve the people of Ireland, right? So that's what we signed up to doing. And we are in competition with private equity, investment funds, and, kind of big business. So I find that challenge. So they can get investment, but we can't. They can pay their directors, but we can't. And yet we're at the same racetrack. That is just a massive unfair disadvantage, especially when we're trying to do nature. Because at the bottom line, we can never, our remit legally is to protect nature. The remit is to support the shareholders. We can never do that. There is no shareholders, there's no profit share. So that for me is just like, that's not what would help you. Yeah, maybe a restructuring of the economic model.
Let's hope for that, Matt. Thank you all so much for being here, taking part, and we'll just give them all a big round of applause.